Episode 1, Lost in the Storm. Chapter 1, The Retreat. Mira Kozlowska arrived at the mountain writing retreat with a backpack, a notebook, and the soft ache of wanting to be understood. The lodge smelled like cedar and coffee. The windows framed a sky the color of wet slate. Outside, rain rehearsed against the eaves like fingers on a drum. She checked in, found her room, and traced the wooden desk with her fingertips as if testing a piano key that might sing. In the common room, a man leaned over a stack of handmade zines, laughing with the host. "Julian Hart," he said when she drew closer, his voice quick, bright, words landing like sparrows. "Short stories, long tangents." "Mira, poems," she smiled, surprised by the ease that rose between them like steam. They paired up for an icebreaker, write the morning as a person. His was witty, morning is a flirty barista who mispronounces your name on purpose. Hers was tender, morning is a shy pianist waiting for the first note. When they read aloud, the room laughed at Julian and went quiet for Mira. He winked at her as if they'd conspired, and she felt suddenly visible, the good kind of exposure. Workshops began. He tossed references like confetti, elegant and slippery, Calvino, clown theory, the architecture of jokes. She listened the way she always did, not to respond but to understand, and when she offered comments she spoke like she wrote, precise, water-clear. At lunch they shared a table, carrot soup, rough bread, the weather trending toward drama. "What's your favorite wrong idea?" he asked. She said that we can only be one thing. He laughed and said he collects wrong ideas the way other people collect mugs. Afternoon slid into dusk. Thunder stitched the sky into darker cloth. A small group drifted to the fireplace and someone found a deck of prompt cards. They drew lines, traded micro-stories. He loved her image of a lighthouse that never judged the weather. She admired his paper crane city map and the way he balanced silliness with ache. Later he walked her to her door. She noticed how his gaze seemed always a step ahead, not unfocused but multi-focused, like he was solving 3 puzzles at once. "This place might turn us into better liars," he joked, "or better writers." "Writers tell the truth in prettier clothes," she said. He grinned, then hesitated, as if a different sentence had flashed in him and moved on. She went to bed smiling anyway, the sort of smile that lifts a person into sleep. Rain thickened. Somewhere a pipe clicked and settled. She opened her notebook and wrote, "A bright wind moves through a blue house. I leave the windows open." The next morning the mountain wore mist like a shawl. On the porch she found Julian comparing 2 pocket notebooks as if they had personalities. "I can't commit to one," he said. "What if this one is better for ideas about stairs and this one for conversations with strangers?" "What do stairs say?" she asked. "They're proof that we're willing to work for height." He looked pleased at his own line, then softer, almost shy. "Come sit." She sat. They drank coffee from chipped mugs. A blue jay argued with its reflection. When the bell rang for workshop, he groaned like a child called inside from recess. "Promise we'll talk again," he said, half question, half charm. "Okay," she said, and felt the tide begin. Chapter 2, Static and Spark. The day arranged itself into shelves: workshop, break, seminar, dinner, readings. In critique, Julian performed charmingly, clever, generous, a touch elusive around his own work. Mira read a new poem that felt like a tender bruise. He tapped his pen, then said, "You make silence feel like a verb," and the table hummed with agreement. Praise usually made her itch. From him, it landed like a warm coat. After lunch, they took the pine trail that looped the property. He told stories of improv nights and abandoned screenplays, of cities he'd worn like borrowed coats. She told him about her grandmother's garden, the Saint candles kept for their labels, and the habit of transcribing dreams before they evaporated. He teased her about owning 3 notebooks. She teased him for finishing none of his projects. He laughed, unoffended. The path smelled of sap and wet soil, the sort of smell that says, "Keep going, you're almost home." Rain convinced them back inside. They found the music room, a slightly tragic upright piano, a framed photo of a local choir, the ghost-soft acoustics of a space built to listen. He tapped out a melody with 2 fingers. She hummed, surprised her voice didn't break. "We're under-rehearsed but emotionally available," he said, grinning. On the bench, his hand brushed hers. The air changed, purposeful now, as if a curtain had been pulled and the stage revealed. Back in the lounge, they hovered near firelight. He leaned in, then stopped, laughing at himself. "I overthink entrances," he confessed. "You already entered," she said, and kissed him first. Their kiss wasn't a headline, it was an opening paragraph, patient, setting terms, trusting the reader. Breath synced, hands found respectful geography, jawline, shoulder, the back of a neck. Heat rose like a tide. She felt her ribs loosen, that rare safe electricity that says, "Let the armor fall." He pulled back, smiling, startled by his own aliveness. "I like you," he said, almost boyish. "I like you," she answered, meaning it as a promise to the room and to the softer person she was with him. That night brought readings. He was funny and unexpectedly tender. The audience leaned toward him like plants to a window. She read last, palms damp, voice steady, a poem about a lighthouse and the weather it refuses to judge. Applause was a hush and then a rush after he touched her elbow. "I want to quote you to you," he said. "Is that obnoxious?" "A little," she said, smiling. "Do it anyway." "I am not looking for rescue," he recited softly, "just a sounding line that tells the truth about depth." The way he said it, careful, awake, made something luminous unfold inside her. They sat up late with the stragglers, watching rain turn the courtyard lights into wavering halos. When the group dissolved, they stood at the fork in the hall where rooms split. "Tomorrow," he said. "Tomorrow," she said, and slept without the usual tangle of doubts. Chapter 3: Threads and Gaps. After the retreat, the mountain clicked back into map distance. Real life resumed with alarms, emails, grocery lists. The glow didn't vanish, it dispersed, finding small ways to continue. The first week he texted endlessly memes, a recording of footsteps on wet pavement, a photo of a bookstore cat mid-squint, a voice note from a late-night walk riffing on commas as literary breaths. He built conversations like paper bridges, clever, buoyant, spanning some quiet underneath. Mira replied with poems in progress and small confessions. She kept a glass of water on the floor beside her bed like a tiny shrine. Certain chords in movie scores undid her. She could feel whether moving in her joints before the forecast admitted it. He praised a line, then pivoted to an article about cloud shapes. She laughed, charmed and slightly hungry, the way you can be both fed and still craving something warmer. They met on Saturday at a flea market. He haggled for a typewriter ribbon in between stalls, kissed her wrist as if they were a couple in a French film. She pretended not to glow. Another evening they found a bar where a bassist played like a conversation. In person he was dazzling, present, playful, focused in a way texting never quite held. Whenever he left, the air thinned. Midweek she wrote him a poem about wanting consistent weather, not constant sunshine. She hesitated before sending, afraid of naming needs too early. When she did, her phone flashed read and then nothing. Hours turned into a night, the night into a second day. She tried not to make a wave out of a ripple, but the water rose anyway. His eventual return came as a flood, 10 messages, a selfie with a coffee cup labeled Julien, a theory about why stairs are romantic, they make your body believe in arrival, a link to an essay he loved. "Wild week," he wrote. She typed and erased a dozen replies, settled on a teacup emoji and call when you can. He didn't. Friday arrived. She let the ache touch her briefly, then put it in the drawer labeled, "Maybe it's fine." They planned a Sunday museum date. He canceled an hour prior with apologies that felt earnest and thin at once. Monday he reappeared with an invitation to a reading, which was good. She loved readings, except she'd already planned dinner with a friend his texts had made her neglect. She chose the friend. He responded, "Totally, next time times 12. She stared at the screen, recognizing both her desire to indulge his buoyancy and the tug of doubt under it. That night she opened the shared drive where they traded drafts and saw his new story, The Many Lives of a Bus Ticket, which was clever and humane. She left thoughtful comments and a heart on her favorite paragraph. In return, he left 3 celebratory exclamation points on her dock, no specifics. She closed the laptop carefully, as if gentleness could teach it to behave better. She wrote a line in her notebook, "The wind loves the chime but never stays." Then she crossed it out and wrote it again. Chapter 4: Pages He Doesn't Turn. Mira began a new series she titled Tides. The first poem imagined being the moon for someone who only looked up on clear nights. She sent Tide's One Clear Skies to Julian with a soft preface, "For you if you want it." He heart-reacted the attachment within minutes, then asked, "Umbrellas, bravery or weakness?" She answered the umbrella question and waited for him to talk about the poem. He didn't. The heart sat there like a closed door with a wreath on it. They scheduled a Sunday writing date at her apartment. She made the room feel like a welcome. Candle that smelled of fig and rain, fresh fruit in a bowl, balcony door cracked to the afternoon. He arrived with pastries and a grin, kissed her cheek, and sprawled on the rug with theatrical contentment. They drafted in companionable silence, swapping laptops between songs. He laughed at his sentences, admired her metaphors, and skipped the file labeled Tides 3, The Storm Arrives. "Do you want to read that one?" she asked lightly. "Later," he said, kissing her forehead. "I want to read you first." It was sweet and evasive in the same breath. They took a break. He segmented an orange with uncommon care, feeding her pieces like tiny suns. He asked about her grandmother's hymn. She told the story and watched him listen, eyes soft, mouth arranging empathy. He was good at this, witness, warmth, the theater of attention. It wasn't fake. It also wasn't the thing she most needed, follow through when attention wasn't easy. After he left, she checked the shared drive. The Tides document still showed unopened. She put her phone face down and washed dishes more forcefully than necessary. The candle tunneled in the center, symbolism she clocked and tried to ignore. Tuesday, he sent a voice note marveling at a kid on the tram counting raindrops until the number made him laugh. Wednesday, silence. Thursday, a river of texts about a reading he'd loved. Friday, a shrug of apologies for missing their call. Time melted. She typed, deleted, typed, I need you to show up when you say you will. She didn't send it because we're taught not to appear demanding when what we want is basic. She printed Tide's 2 low-pressure warning and taped it by her desk, as if paper could be proof of the part of her that noticed, measured, named. On Saturday, he surprised her with tickets to a small theater show. It was inventive and a little heartbreaking, a one-person piece about the objects we keep. They held hands, and for 90 minutes her doubt slept. After he said, "We're good, right?" and she said, "Yes," because at that moment it felt almost true. Chapter 5: Intimacy with Weather Warnings. They planned a weekend at his apartment. Tall windows, plants draped like commas, books stacked in geological strata. He cooked linguine with garlic and lemon, humming while he zesting as if music came in through the citrus. He poured wine and set the table with a small flourish, the kind that makes ordinary evenings feel curated. Conversation moved like river water, childhood, the weird loneliness of elevators, the satisfaction of returning library books on time. When the plates were pushed back, quiet arrived, the warm kind. They undressed each other with care, each layer falling like a word they didn't need anymore. She guided his hand, he listened with touch. Kisses mapped felt geography, shoulder, throat, the hollow at the base of her neck where breath pauses. Their lovemaking was tender and attuned. They spoke in murmured yeses, paced by the tide of breath. She felt that loosening she recognizes as truth, the armor set down, the body consenting to its own softness. And then unexpected, not from pain, tears came. Relief tears, gratitude tears, the kind that slip out when something in you sits down and stops bracing. He didn't notice, his eyes were closed, smile easy, lost in his own bright weather. She turned her face into the pillow and let the tears fold into cotton. After he rolled to the side, tossed a joke into the air about Olympic-level cuddling, and asked if she'd seen a new comedy special. She laughed because laughing was easier than saying, "I cried during sex and you didn't see me." She curled into him, listening to his heartbeat and the silence beneath it. At 3 a.m., she woke to the city's hush and typed a note on her phone. "I cried during sex and he didn't see me." Seeing the sentence calmed her. Naming always did. Morning brought croissants and a sudden meeting he'd forgotten to mention. He kissed her cheek at the door with quick affection. "You're wonderful," he said. "Text me later." She nodded, alone in his hallway, then in the elevator, then on the street where the weather couldn't decide. Sunshot rain, half a rainbow, wind rearranging her hair. She walked aimlessly, letting the city set her pace. At a crosswalk she remembered how, at the retreat, he'd quoted her line about sounding depth, how carefully he had pronounced it. Maybe that care was still there and simply got crowded by other things. The thought helped and hurt. Back home, she wrote Tide's 4 Microclimates, a poem about how one room can hold sun and shadow at the same time, how two people can too. She didn't send it. She placed it on her desk like a weather instrument and watched the needle's small, honest movements. Chapter 6: The Conversation That Slips Away. On Monday, she texted, "Can we plan a feelings talk? I want to tell you what happens inside me." He replied quickly, "Yes, yes, dinner Thursday," with a lightning bolt and a smiley that felt both enthusiastic and rushed. At the restaurant, he was story-eager. A neighbor's parrot swore in Italian, a podcast he might start, tiny essays, big feelings, short episodes, an essay he wanted to pitch about how buses are the true democratic salons. She loved his sparkle. She waited for a quiet pocket, then poured her water to give her hands something to do. "I cried last weekend," she said, careful. "During not from pain, just too full. I wanted you to see me." He reached for her hand, squeezed, then rifled for a joke he tried to smother. "I mean, my performance was moving." He winced. "Sorry, I deflect when I'm nervous." "I know," she said. "Can you try not to, just for this?" He nodded, face clearing. "Okay, I hear you. You're intense in a way that's beautiful. Sometimes I go foggy when things are big." The admission felt like a door he cracked open with his foot. She exhaled. "I don't need constant intensity. I need presence when it matters. If you can't be present, I need you to tell me instead of vanishing." He seemed relieved to have the script. "I can try, I will try." And then the pivot, subtle but certain, his eyes lit on a couple at a shared table. "Do you ever notice how pairs mirror posture? It's like conversation by bone." She followed his gaze, then returned to him. "Julian." He flushed, chastened, then tried again. "You matter to me. I'm not great at staying." He made a small, apologetic gesture, as if indicating a temporary hazard on the road. "Staying is the point," she said, quiet, not unkind. "And it's okay if you don't want the same thing. I just need to know." He nodded. The server arrived with their food. The moment shifted. They ate, made gentler talk, paid, walked outside into air that had decided to be cool. He put his arm around her. She leaned in. Affection lived alongside ambiguity like roommates who barely spoke but split rent. At her door, he held her a beat longer than usual. "We're okay," he asked. "We're talking," she said. It was the truth available, and sometimes that is the only kind. Chapter 7: The Line in the Water. Days went strangely, sunny texts, cloudy silences. He sent a midnight voice note reading the opening of a new story. She listened twice, smiling at a gorgeous sentence, then watched the typing bubble become nothing. She printed Tides 5, Harbor, a poem about wanting a place to tie up without apologizing for rope. She left it on her table like an anchor she could see. On Saturday, she invited him over. She brewed tea, set 2 cups, placed the poem where paper could advocate. He arrived late, apologies tumbling. He kissed her, scanned the room as if it might offer a topic, and began a tale about an audition he hadn't prepared for and somehow nailed. She held up a hand gently. "Pause, can we have the real talk we keep skirting?" He sat, hands restless. She didn't pick up the printed poem. "I need consistency," she said, "not constant attention. Show up when you say you will. Read the things I write for you. If you can't tell me, don't disappear and reappear like weather." He looked genuinely sorry. "I don't mean to vanish. I get swept. I think I'll come back with something impressive. Then the window closes and I feel shame, and then I avoid the door because it squeaks." He grimaced at his own metaphor. "Thank you for saying that," she said, tenderness automatic. "Can we build something steadier anyway?" He hesitated, eyes bright with possibilities that didn't include plan. "You're a lot," he said, and it wasn't an insult. It was a truth, wearing good shoes. "Beautifully, but a lot," he tried for softer. "Sometimes your depth scares me. I feel like I'll fail in it." She nodded. "And you never really showed up," she said, equally plain. The sentence clicked into her chest. Relief arrived with pain, like lightning with its thunder following. They didn't yell, they didn't rehearse a courtroom. They sat with mismatch, 2 decent people holding a shape that didn't fit no matter how they turned it. She reached to touch his cheek. He leaned into her palm reflexively. Affection wasn't the problem, and that complicated nothing and everything. "Maybe if I grow up a bit," he said, half to himself. "Maybe," she said, not unkind. "But I can't wait for maybe if it means ignoring what I need." They parceled silence into respectful pieces. Then they stood, moved like people do when there's no choreography left. He put on his jacket. She walked him downstairs. Outside, the sky had the washed look weather gets after deciding. They stood in it like citizens of a small country that had just voted. "We were good," he said. "In parts," she said, "and I need whole." He nodded. They hugged. It felt both long and not long enough. When he turned the corner, she didn't call his name. She went upstairs and took the poem off the table, not to tear it, not to frame it, but simply to hold it a while, the way you hold a compass even after you already know which way is north. Chapter 8: After the Storm. They met once more in the park to be kind to the ending. Early afternoon, benches still holding the morning's cool. They tried to rewrite the last chapter and failed gently. "I'll read the poems," he said, meaning it and also meaning later. "You don't have to," she said, meaning it and also meaning please don't make me wait. They hugged. He made one last joke. It landed in the light way he hoped. She smiled because she did love his laughter and because it was time to let it go. They walked different directions without theatrics. A dog shook off water near a fountain and looked immediately happier. At home, she opened her folder and renamed Tides to Barometer. The new poem began. "I asked for whether I could plan a picnic around." She brewed tea and read her own words aloud, practicing the shape of her voice when it wasn't trying to be lighter to suit someone else's weather. She texted him once, "I hope you find a sky that suits you." He replied, "I hope you find a harbor that holds you. Clean, no promises, no plans." She screenshotted the exchange and then deleted the screenshot because she didn't need a memorial. She needed room. The weeks after arrived like alternating currents, lonely, relieved, proud, sad. She avoided the cafe where they'd laughed about stairs. She let friends feed her soup and ordinary conversation. She walked farther than necessary, wrote better lines than before, stopped apologizing for needing depth as if it were a luxury instead of her native water. Her apartment changed subtly. New plant on the sill, the candle with the tunneled center finally scraped and reset. The printed poem moved from desk to wall. She bought fresh sheets because the old ones remembered too much. She slept diagonally sometimes because she could. One afternoon, rain started and she didn't check her phone to see who might be under it too. She let herself be the whole ocean, not a weather report. When the storm passed, the light felt earned. A month later, she read Barometer at an open mic. The room went quiet in that way that means people are with you, not just listening. After a woman with ink-stained fingers said, "Thank you for naming it," Myra nodded, grateful. Clarity is a kind of love. On her balcony that night, she watched the city untangle itself from day. Somewhere a radio played a song about leaving kindly. She texted a friend a photo of the sky and typed, "I'm okay." The friend replied with a heart and a reminder to drink water. She laughed, went inside, filled a glass, set it on the floor by her bed the way she always had, not as a shrine this time, but as a simple kindness to the person who would wake up tomorrow and keep choosing steadier weather. When she finally slept, she dreamed of a lighthouse. It didn't judge the weather, it didn't repair it either. It just shone constant, honest, so sailors could decide. In the morning, she wrote that down and didn't send it to anyone. Some truths belong first to the one who earned them. Like this video, subscribe, more stories like this are coming.